Hi there. Today I wanted to give you my impressions of this pocket knife. This is the Benchmade Taggedout. So this pocket knife is in their Hunt lineup. And if you're new to Benchmade, I'll spend a minute or so here talking about the different versions of knives that Benchmade has. So they have their Hunt lineup, which is geared towards hunting. They have both fixed blades and folders in that. Then they have their what they call their blue class, and their blue class knives, and an example of that's the bug out, the Benchmade bug out. Their blue class knives are what they consider everyday carry knives. Now I everyday carry a hunting knife. I everyday carry this, so I don't think that there's a whole lot of difference there. But this is what they consider their everyday carry knife. Normally these are a little lighter, I think, in construction, and the blade shapes and things are more geared towards everyday, but there's kind of like there's a blurry line there between these two. And then they have what they call their black class, and their black class is more along the lines of a tactical knife. Both fixed blades. They have fixed blades, folders, and they have some out the fronts in their black class, and that's more for tactical, or what I consider them, because I'm not a tactical person, but what I consider them more for is hard use. So an example of that is the Benchmade Adamas, and this is the mini Adamas. So this is just an overbuilt pocket knife. I mean, everything on it is bigger and beefier than it probably needs to be. This is not a fixed blade though, so it will still fail way before a fixed blade will, but this is a really tough knife. And this one is in CPM crew wear, but the original Adamas and the larger ones that I have, they're in D2 steel, the full-size ones. And I have beat them up relatively well, opening cans, a little bit of prying with them, and they've held up pretty well. So this is their black class, so hard use or tactical. Then they have their gold class, and their gold class, which I don't have an example on the table right now, I don't carry those. Those are more collector knives to me. If you have a gold class knife that you really like that you carry, that's great. But these are the versions of knives that I actually carry from time to time. They're blue class for every day. Their hunting knife, hunt class, which I also carry every day, and their tactical knife, their black class or tactical hard use knives if I think I need that, which is kind of sort of rare for me. So let's do some size comparisons with some knives that people might have some experience with. So we'll leave the bug out there, and you can see that this knife is 3.4 inch blade, 3.5 inches, something like that. And the blade is actually much longer than the bug out. And then we'll look at another couple that people probably, so for your Spyderco fans, this is the Paramilitary 2. And this is let's try that again. And this is the Para 3. Both of these are in S110V. So the Para 2 blade, the actual cutting length, seems to be a little less than the Taggedout. So the Taggedout is not a small bladed knife, but as far as handles go, I don't know if you can see this. We'll line the handles up. The handle's actually longer on the Para 2 than on the Taggedout by a few millimeters, not a lot. So that's size comparisons. So as far as other knives in the Hunt series, and why I think that the Taggedout is the best knife in the Hunt series now, folding knife at least, here's some other examples. So here's the North Fork, and I don't know if they still make this, but this is stabilized wood and S30V. I actually thought I was going to like this knife better, and it has some good qualities, and one of the good qualities is the jimping on this knife is pretty good, as well as having jimping up here, so you can kind of choke up on the knife a little bit. But this is a lot thicker and shorter, and it just doesn't feel, I don't like carrying this knife for some reason. And also, I've kind of moved away from recurved blades, especially if I have to sharpen them in the field. I know it can be done. I carry a rod in my backpack, but I just don't like doing it. another knife that I used to carry that has the good parts of the North Fork, such as the jimping, but it has a better handle. And this is a Grizzly Creek or Grizzly Ridge, something like that. I don't think they make this particular knife anymore, but this has rubberized handles. So if your hands do get bloody or wet, they are not going to slip as easy here. I really do like this. But again, I moved away from this knife because I kind of moved away from recurves in general. The next knife that is the Crooked River. So there's two versions of this. There's the full-size Crooked River, which is actually a really big knife, and I don't enjoy carrying that one because it's so big. And then there's this one, the mini Crooked River, which is basically a full-size knife. And if you look, the blade shapes, they're both clip point blades. The lengths aren't too dissimilar. This has a flat ground blade on it, which I really like for slicing. This is much slicier than the Crooked River, and this is not to say that the Crooked River isn't a very good knife. It's a little slick here for me when my hands get wet. I found that. And this jimping, there's no jimping on the blade, and the jimping here on the handle, this is almost non-existent. So the jimping on this knife isn't that good, but the blade shape is great. And before the Taggedout, this was my Benchmade go-to hunting knife in the Hunt series. So for the Taggedout, what Benchmade did for it, the improvements, and there's three versions of this, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. What Benchmade did to improve this, I think, over the Crooked River is they changed the edge geometry and they changed the blade. So this has got what they call their select edge, and I think it's 14 degrees. It's a much more, it's a much better angle to be slicier. And as far as the blade stock, you can see the blade stock even looks thinner. So we can look down here before it gets up to the clip points, but the blade stock is much thinner, and it also has a full flat ground. So they've taken steps to make this a much slicier knife, knowing that that's what people that are using hunting knives, especially folding hunting knives, are doing. We're cutting. We're not banging on wood or batoning through a log or whatever. We're cutting animals, cutting rope, doing light camp chores, cutting open bags of feed for dogs or for, anything else. And they've made sure that this knife is as slicey as they can make it. So this is a knife, a tool to cut with. And I think that they've done a really good job with that. So, excuse me. But there are things about this knife that I don't like, and we'll talk about this one. So let's start out with the fact that this is the higher end version of this knife. So it's got the higher end materials, and one of them is a carbon fiber. So I should have known this, but this was such a good looking knife in the store that this is the one I picked up. This does get a little bit slippery when your hands get wet. The jimping on the back of the actual scales is like the Crooked River. It's non-existent. The jimping on the handle is or on the blade stock, back of the blade stock, is a little better, but not much. So the jimping on this knife kind of suffers a little bit. They could have done a better job right here on the blade. I know with the clip point, they can't really put it up here that well, but they could have done a better job right here, I think. As far as the sliciness of the blade, this knife is great. It's thinner blade stock, it's full flat ground, it's got their select edge on it, which is more of a slicey edge to the knife. Still pretty easy to sharpen with the CPM magnacut. I can strop this up in the field with no problem whatsoever. I've been using this knife since August, and around the camp and in the woods, and cut on, I think I'm at 10 whitetail that I've messed with on this, that I've used this knife on now. So I've used the knife a pretty good bit. So things I've done, this could have been grippier, and I don't know how you make carbon fiber still look this great and be grippy. I really don't know how they would do that. It is nice and rounded, and there's no hot spots. It's got a nice deep carry pocket clip, so I'm not really worried about this getting grabbed and pulled out of my pocket. They could have added some color, I guess, to the handle too, because let's say it does fall out of your pocket, the blade's going to be closed. This isn't going to help you find it. Things that I don't believe that they needed to coat this blade orange, although I know that's just Benchmade coating their blade orange because it's in the hunt line, but MagnaCut's not going to rust. I live a stone's throw away from the ocean, and I carry Chris Reeve Sabenza with MagnaCut blade, and there's no rust on it. Every now and then I just wipe it off, and I might cover it with a little bit of oil if I'm sitting at the desk with the oil. Otherwise, I don't even mess with it. This knife came, how do I say it? This knife came loose in the blade. I don't know if the people that I bought it from, if the company was messing with it because they were playing with it, the shop, or not, but when I got it home, I actually tightened this up. There's no play in it now. The blade up, side to side, or up and down. The centering is now better. It was a little bit off. The centering is better now that I've adjusted. I don't know how that happened, but I don't really fidget with my knives that much, so I don't need this to be drop shut. I just need to be able to open it with one hand and close it with one hand, and I can do that pretty easily now that I've tightened it up. So there's 3 versions of this. I told you I'd get to that. So 3 versions of this, and would I pick this version again for what I do with this knife? No. So let's go backwards. So this knife is the highest end version, and I think it's $330 is what I paid for it, something in that neighborhood. And it has carbon fiber, MagnaCut steel. This is just a higher end material knife. Then back up one, they have one with G10 handles, scales, thumb studs, and I don't like the thumb studs for a hunting knife, although I know that basically I just rinse this out when I'm done with it anyway. And I would do the same thing with this knife and did the same thing with this knife, and stuff comes off of it. There's stuff comes right off of it, so that's not a big deal. But I do like, for a hunting knife, I do like this hole. It's just easier to clean because I can take a bottle of water basically and splash on it and rub it off and done. So the G10 one also has CPM 154 steel. So that's the powder metal version of 154 CM, which is a great steel and sharpens really easy in the field. So if I was going to EDC the knife all day and that's all I ever did with it was EDC the knife, that's probably the version I would have gotten. And then the cheapest version, which was like, and the middle version is $250. The cheapest version is like $170, and it comes with FRN orange handles, CPM 154, so easy steel to sharpen. The hole here, as well as better jimping. So the jimping on the handle is much better on that knife, and they even have some down here as well and on the back. So they've got more jimping on that knife, and it feels like I can hold on to that one better. I basically got this one because this was the shiny object out of the 3. That's why I got this one. But if I had to do it again, I would save myself $100 and something, and I would get the cheaper version, because most of what I've done with this so far is in the field. And if it ever did fall out of my pocket, the orange handles would be easier to find. The other one's much easier to grip. Again, I'm not worried about it corroding. It has a steel on it that's even easier to sharpen, I feel like it is, at least, than MagnaCut. I've got a few knives in MagnaCut, so this isn't my first experience with it, but not hard to sharpen. But the CPM 154 is way easier to sharpen in the field with a little cheap sharpening rod, right? So that's my take on this pocket knife. If you're using it just for hunting, get the cheap version of it, the one with the FRN scales. If you're just EDCing it, get the one with the G10 probably, and the thumb studs, especially if you want to play with it more as a fidget toy. And if you just want the higher end version and you're kind of EDCing it, and you're hunting with it, and you just want to look at a nicer knife, then go ahead and get this one, because it's not a bad knife. So if you have, oh, and the blade shape. So I do like this blade shape. The clip point makes this really, really easy to run up underneath the skin, as well as it makes it really easy if I'm piercing like a food bag or something like that. It makes it really easy to get into the bag. So this is a great blade shape. In fact, I like this blade better than this clip point because of the full flat ground on the blade, as the new thinner edge, the thinner blade stock, obviously, and it has a little bit more, so it's a little gradual or going up the full flat ground than this. The actual blade is wider, which I think makes this a really slicey knife. This is a really good knife for cutting. Not that this one's bad, but this one is noticeably better. So if you like videos like this, I also do gun content. I just haven't had time to do it in a while because I've been working a lot and it's hunting season and I've been hunting as much as possible. So if you like content like this, then please subscribe to my channel. And if you want to correct anything that I said about this knife, or if you have experience with this and I didn't cover something that you think people need to know, why don't you leave that in the comments as well? I'd really appreciate it. So otherwise, everybody have a good rest of your day, and thanks for watching.